What made you suddenly lose interest in someone you were pursuing? Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Thanks. Story 1. The biggest red flag for me is pursuing someone who loves attention on themselves but is not very interested in your life. Basically drop the pursuit right there and look for someone who is just as interested in you as you are in them. Story 2. She disappeared for about a month and showed up looking horrible, lost so much weight I hardly recognized her. Found out that she was left $20K by her dad and received it. She was a crackhead and spent it all. Didn't spend a penny on her two young children either. Just left them with her mom and went partying. Story 4. They started flirting with my best friend. Story 5. One night stand developed into dating. Potentially serious, then I find out she's married. Then she tells me she's preggo and that her husband had a vasectomy several years earlier. Then she kinda disappears. Story 6. I was into this girl in my friend group in the first couple months of uni. One late night, we were all in the common room in a friend's accommodation around 1 a.m. We were playing a game of truths when she got asked to rate all the guys in the friend group by attractiveness. Our group was 11 in size with 6 guys and 5 girls. She started off with the most attractive and went down the list. It hurt as she named every other guy there, and with every pause she took, I was hoping I would just be the next guy named, and not the last. Except I was the last guy she named. Not only that though, shortly afterwards, the other 2 girls of the group present that night were asked to do the same, and I also ended up on the bottom of their lists too. I felt pretty awful that night and after. The other 2 girls' verdicts didn't help, but hearing I'm the ugliest in the group from the girl I liked really hurt a ton, and naturally I stopped trying after that. Seen each other 3 to 4 times. Everything was good. Didn't suspect anything bad. She stayed the night. Great night. Wake up in the morning, empty bed. Purse and most of her clothes are still here. Get up, walk to bathroom to pee. Come back into room. She is slumped over on the floor. A belt around arm and needle on floor in front of her. WTF. I get her up, get dressed and get out. Story 9. Date like 2 or 3. She had to use the bathroom, whatever. No biggie, it happens. Even stinking the bathroom up wouldn't have bugged me. Not flushing a substantially sized shit and apparently not wiping, however, was a deal breaker. Story 10. He genuinely referred to himself as an alpha male and then continued to tell me how much women sucked while we were at a concert with a woman opener. Story 11. We both worked at a Hollywood video shortly after DVD rentals became a thing. That part is just context for the time period. We were both in high school but went to different ones. She was attractive and had a wicked sense of humor. We also got along pretty well. I was planning to ask her to my school's homecoming. One Saturday morning we were both on the opening shift. A severely mentally handicapped man came in asking for help with his watch. I tried to help him, but the thing looked pretty busted. As soon as the door closed she let out a huge disgusted sigh and said, "God, I fucking hate R. So gross." And the shuddered like someone had splashed her with something. My opinion of her dropped like a lead balloon. After 2 years he needed a place to stay, so I said he could come stay with me. It soon became clear when he arrived why I only ever saw headshots. He was morbidly obese, like 28 stone and disabled as a result. However, by that time, there were a lot of feelings involved, and I love people for who they are, not what they look like. So we made a go of it for 2 years. In that time, I was working full-time on the phones for a charity. When I came home, he wouldn't let me have a moment's peace and quiet, which is what I needed after a stressful day at work. Instead, he had to hold my hand constantly and would talk nonstop. I mean, I get he was on his own all day, but he would also be constantly messaging while I was at work, so I had no escape. I literally became his full-time carer on top of working 45+ hours a week. I tried desperately to help him lose weight, but there was always an excuse. What pushed me over the edge was when we discussed that I wanted kids. However, he felt that my lifestyle was not healthy enough to possibly raise children. I was an average and totally acceptable weight. In that moment, it became clear that he would never change. He had the nerve to criticize me when he had done nothing to improve himself, which filled me with rage. I told him it was over and he had 2 weeks to leave. He then told me he wanted to propose and that we should have kids right away. I noped right out of that relationship in an instant once he said that. Story 14. Went to surprise her for her birthday 3 days after she randomly showed up at my apartment saying she had broke up with her long-term boyfriend all through high school. We kissed at my place. When I got to her dorm room to surprise her, the ex-boyfriend was in her bed, under the covers, and appeared to be naked, at least from the shoulders up. Pretty much just dropped the present I had gotten her and turned around walking away. I went to go visit a friend I knew was at the same college I had driven an hour. He was busy writing a paper but said I should go visit his little sister who I had seen in over a year. She was at the same college. He gave me directions to her dorm. 27 years later, my friend's little sister and I have 4 kids and been married over 23 years. Story 16. I realized he was using me for favors. He was always needy, but never there when I desperately needed him. Story 17. He made excuses for everything. We could not have one conversation where he did not blame someone else for his own shit. Drop out of college. Well, it was a stupid degree anyways. His teachers were unfair to him, specifically. Higher education as a whole is a scam. Never had a job at almost 24+ years old. Well, it's his mom's fault for not getting him used to working at a young age. Can't pay for his half of the date. His bummy friends must have ripped him off. We're playing video games and he dies. It's my fault. Our teammates' faults. The game is dumb. He's lagging. His controller died. I very quickly realized that this inability to acknowledge his mistakes or shortcomings would bleed into the relationship. I could not see myself with someone who acted that way long term, so I dipped out and encouraged him to do some real introspection. His response, of course, was that I clearly didn't like him that much and didn't try enough. Yeah, shocking. And amp, #X200B. Story 19. Had a fling with a guy when I was abroad. He scolded me for putting salt on my pasta because it was unhealthy. Meanwhile, the previous night he finished an entire bottle of gin to himself. Mind your MF business. Story 20. When he stopped talking to me after I didn't send him nudes, turns out he asks multiple girls for nudes, then sells the pictures to some of his friends. A complete human garbage, if you ask me. Story 21. After the second date he said he can't wait to put a baby in me. And when I asked if we can get to know each other first, he said he doesn't have time for a 6 to 12 months courtship. He already knows what he wants. Anyway, I did let him know I'm not a womb for hire, and never talked again. Story 22. They hurt my dog. Now, I was into this guy for a while. Bigger guy. Seemed really sweet. I invited him over after we hit it off, and my dog, being a dog, came up to see this new person. He responds to this inquisitive sniffing my kicking them in the face, and seeming proud of it, saying that you have to show a mutt who's boss. I told him to get the fuck out of my house and never come back. I'm still very single, but my dogs haven't been hurt like that since. I asked him a question, but then wasn't sure that question would make him upset, so I deleted the message. He had started reading the question when I deleted it and became inconsolably angry at me, screaming for hours without stopping, and something just clicked in me during the middle of his yelling, and I realized I hadn't loved him for some time. I felt sorry for his life situation, and I never actually wanted to even date him since the beginning. Context: the question was about some kind of drama I saw in an article. I don't remember exactly what the question was since it was so long ago. She was smart and beautiful. She was a cellist and I was learning the violin. We had both decided religion was BS. We both really liked literature. We had tons to talk about and do together. She seemed so sweet. I felt like we were vibing. When I drove her around on our first date, she screamed at everyone on the road. Like, she rolled the windows down and leaned out the car because a dude did a complete stop at a stop sign. It was like that the entire way. Maybe she was stressed. Hangry. We ate, did a duet in the park, and went for a walk. She was perfect, witty, charming, had a good sense of humor. The first girl I was interested in that could run circles around me in a conversation. I was smitten all over again. The amount of rage on the way home had me wanting to trade my car in. Nope. Story 26. I went to their house and genuinely thought, bitch, you live like this. Story 27. After dating a woman for a few months, I took her out for breakfast on her birthday, with plans to see her again that night. She went completely off the radar, only to emerge the next day to confess that she had spent the night in jail for violating the restraining order placed upon her after assaulting her previous boyfriend. Hit the eject button pronto. Never looked back. I was completely caught off guard because she held a very prestigious job, had extensive real estate holdings, and presented as squeaky clean. He couldn't take being shut down when he was talking bullshit and didn't like when someone was more knowledgeable than he was. I was raised by a narc, so I was kind of weirded out by how I didn't notice it before. But when I eventually did, I noped out of that situation so fucking hard it was kind of funny. Story 29. He was being really touchy-feely in front of my friends and his friends, and he knew that made me uncomfortable. I was telling him to knock it off with increasing seriousness. He finally went too far, and I yelled at him stop. And I spent the next 15 minutes trying to cheer him up because he felt bad and was all mopey and shit. We were at my place, so I couldn't just leave. The whole situation killed the vibe. Story 30. Her place was messy the first time I visited, but it was short notice, so I didn't think too much of it. The toilet was dirty, dishes all over the kitchen and in the sink, clothes all over the floor in bedroom, living room unkempt, bits of whatever on the sheets and carpet. Went over again a week later, with plenty of notice, and it wasn't any better. I lost interest because I couldn't feel comfortable in her mess. I can forgive messes once in a while, but I like a tidy home. Also, I clean up before I have someone over, even just friends, so it kind of felt inconsiderate of her. Story 32. Realizing that the warm feeling I got around them came from liking their affection, attention rather than out of love, and not being selfish enough to try using them for my own gain. Story 33. She never loved me the way I loved her. In this world, even if you try to be the best version you can be and you naturally have the same interests and lifestyle as someone else, it doesn't mean they will acknowledge you as an equal. Many people are too lost in themselves to notice that someone close loves them for who they are. I've come to accept that it's better to love those who at least want me around than those who don't know what they want and fail to realize that I actually did love them. This was incredibly strange for me because I was an introvert and was never really noticed by people. They were polar opposites, too. One was a tall, lanky emo boy who played bass in a band. I'd gone with my friend to watch them play, and he asked for my number. I thought he was cute and he was my type, so I was stoked. The second was a stocky wrestler kind of guy. Taller than me but not very tall, short blonde hair and more shy. Over the next few days I talked casually with them both. The emo guy was the most boring conversationalist I've ever encountered. I'm a naturally bubbly and talkative person when I get to know people, so his way of speaking was off-putting. It was mostly texting, and his responses were lackluster, often monosyllabic and seemingly uninterested. Even though I found him attractive, I stopped responding and it just fizzled out. He's still bumming around our hometown doing the same things he was a decade ago. The second guy was incredibly intelligent, engaging in conversation, and sweet. He wasn't my type at all, but I found myself liking him more as time went on. We eventually started dating, and next week on the 24th, we will be celebrating 12 years together. We've been married for almost 6, we have a 4-year-old daughter, a house, and overall a lovely little life. Crazy how things work out. Story 36. I saw what his life was like. We dated very loose sense of the word, sanely because, at the time, both our jobs were pretty demanding. I knew he had adult kids all over the state, that he would spend weekends doing things for or with them. I moved out of state. Assuming we would go our separate ways, we continued to communicate, and late last year, he admitted he loved me, which I definitely did him. But I will never move back to the state he lives in, and I know asking him to move to my state, away from his kids and grandkids who he adores, is not something I was going to do. So, we get together a few months ago to talk about how we are going to orchestrate an LDR. His phone was non-stop. During the day, people getting injured. The evening came. It was so crystal clear to me that there was no way he could even consider adding an LDR to his full plate. He thinks it's possible. There is no way in hell he has time or energy to do it, no matter how much he thinks he wants it. And I will not throw a monkey wrench in his life, because I know how much his family and being there for them means to him. His life needs something. But an LDR ain't it. One of my coworkers was a cute, shapely redhead. I was worried that she wouldn't be attracted to a fat neckbeard like me, but I seemed to have a lot of chemistry with her, as we shared a number of interests and she always laughed at my jokes. One day I tell her my magnum opus, one which I thought of myself. How many Westboro Baptists, the hate group with the God hates F and amp, GS signs, does it take to change a light bulb? 30. 1 to change it, and 29 to protest it for being brighter than they are. She laughs harder than she had at any of my other jokes. Then she says this. And GT, I'll have to tell my wife that one. Story 38. When I was 21, I asked a girl out and she said no thanks. I spent a lot of time with her via a mutual friends group and she remained single, and so did I. We got on great, and I made it clear that if she ever wanted to change her mind, I'd still like to take her out. She kept saying we'll see, so I lost interest. I then met another girl, and word got back to me that original girl would probably say yes if I wanted to go out on a date. Except I liked the new girl, and I didn't want old girl's drama. I've now been married to new girl for 20 years. I lost touch with old girl, and I doubt she ever gives me a second thought. But I'm glad to this day that she said no. Story 40. He was giving other girls the same attention he did to me. We were in a private relationship, these girls knew this. He kept switching through close girlfriends, would tell me about the things they did together. He cuddled with her in his bed, she kissed him on the neck, he told me he massaged her, etc. He flirted too much with them, bro. Honestly hurt me a lot and made me feel like maybe he would just be better off with one of them instead of me. This was included in my reasoning when I broke up with him. Story 41. She sent me a picture of her sucking off to dudes when I asked if she going to be late to our date. Story 42. Realized I was putting more into it than they were, and that was unlikely to ever change. Story 43. My daughter had surgery for a compound fracture. A guy she had only just started seeing dropped by, and while they were hugging, she farted. He didn't call again. When she told me why he hadn't been around, I literally fell out. I still bring this up. We both got a big kick out of it. Story 44. I wasn't pursuing him anymore, but I did still have a nagging feeling of liking him despite not wanting to, until I found out that he wants to settle down and have kids with someone young. As in, 18, 20 young. He's nearly 40, and he volunteers as a trainer for a student sports association. And yes, he is very friendly to the new members, fresh out of high school. Well, the female ones, that is. Those two things combined nullify every single positive aspect about him. It's not illegal, it's just disgusting and creepy. Story 46. She couldn't keep her word. Anytime we agreed on something, she'd always try to get out of it. That got annoying fast. Story 47. Oof. I've got the winner for this thread right here. I was once with this guy, things were going great, then just as things were starting to get physical, he told me he was HIV positive. Within 2 minutes of that revelation, he told me he hated using condoms and would absolutely refuse to use one with me. Could not nope out of that situation fast enough. I worked back shift at the time though and had to sleep at like noon to not be dead at work. I woke up at 8 p.m. to 90 texts of this woman telling going, hey, and why did you stop messaging me? And I guess I'm not good enough. I feel bad for doing this, but I ghosted after that. I knew I couldn't handle this type of attachment, especially coming from someone I hadn't even met IRL yet. Story 49. Realized they want a maid to cook and not an equal partner. Story 50. Bad breath and being too handsy too soon. Story 51. I went on a few casual dates with this guy a few months before I started dating my now husband. My friend and I went to hang out with him at his college. I was all dressed up and cute, but had a wrist brace on. He asked me if I hurt my wrist, and I told him that I had a painful ganglion cyst and that the doctor told me to wear the brace. He scrunched up his face in disgust, and it completely took me off guard. Then a few minutes later I popped in my Kanye CD, this was 2004, and he started talking so much trash. Not about Kanye, not about the music, but about the kind of people that would listen to that trash. We dropped him off and left. He's a lawyer now and lives in my town. He also goes to my gym, and I've walked by him a few times and he has no idea it's me. Story 53. She told me she wanted to fuck Trump. That was probably the shallowest reason I've ever dumped someone. Although it was only like 2 to 3 dates and so IDK. Story 54. I had a crush on this guy friend at the time back in 11th or 12th grade. He rejected me and started dating a friend of mine. She didn't know that I liked him, so no fault to her. Then afterwards he would drunk text me and send me pics. He said that he was embarrassed by me liking him, but he was always curious about what it would be like to sleep with a black girl. So, he never actually liked me for me, he saw me as a quest of sorts, and my self-esteem was crushed by that, among other things. Story 56. When she told me she was stockpiling for a future global famine and that she could rotate her eardrums 360 degrees to intercept frequency shifts while she was on the phone to her dad, a government contractor. You? Story 57. The way he spoke to his mom. You don't have to love her like I love my mom, I get that. But when he belittled and berated her when she was too senile to argue back was disgusting and infuriating. Story 58. They talked about Jesus and God all the time. I'm all for whatever faith someone has, but this was beyond obsessive. Story 59. There was a guy I was chatting with who mentioned that his ex-wife was currently 6 months pregnant with his baby. I was like, yeah, never mind, I don't need the drama. Story 60. Lack of effort. Loves to talk about herself, wouldn't care less about you. Story 61. I keep trying to relearn how to draw. I used to be great at it as a kid. I'd make my own comic books. But when you pick up the pencil again, there's this period of getting back into the flow before you can even think about improving. Now there's so much other shit I got to do as an adult, I never get past that getting back into it stage. Something gets in the way, you take a break, and now you got to restart. Story 63. Littering. Story 64. Found out they use meth. Story 65. She was way too clingy. I realized I was done with her when she made me miss out on important life events, weddings, funerals, family get-togethers, etc. to be with her, and she was very controlling. Been single ever since 2019. Story 66. She told me when she is married she had fucked her husband's best friend several times on the sly. This absolutely made me see her in a totally different light. Story 67. Rude to the waitress. Story 68. One time we were chatting and she mentioned she broke her phone screen again. I casually ask how. She goes on to explain it's a constant issue because she won't put down her phone when she is using the shotgun. I'm like but then she doubles down by saying she likes to sit outside at night and blow away raccoons. Haven't even waved at her since, even when we see each daily. Story 69. We were at dinner. She referred to the black waiter as a colored guy. I said I don't think you can call someone colored anymore. She said it's not like I called him an N-word. Hard R, just as he was delivering our chips and salsa. I excused myself and left.